Hi, I'm Ben Grabham. We're out here today with ADB to give you some handy riding tips for off-road racing. Over my time racing all over the world, I've seen some pretty unique styles, but the one thing in common is they all get the basics right. So what we're going to go through today with you is the basics, because what I find is if you get them right, you can just keep building the speed from there. Line selection in off-road racing is super important. As you can see, this is an old 4-day special test, so you can see there's quite a few lines in it. Just looking at them briefly, like the outside line, I reckon 99% of people would end up there because they're gonna just come in, rush the corner, but the downfall to that is it's quite a long way out and it makes your exit turn into a big S-bend. The middle line at the moment is more the ultimate line for me. It's not a long distance like going around the outside, it's nice and short. The rut there's really nice at the moment, so that's where I'd be leaning towards in the race. And then you've got the option of going really far inside. What I keep that one up my sleeve for is when the other two lines get blown out after lap during special tests around there. I'd start looking to get those really tight lines and stay out of the really rough bumps. Setting up and entering the turn is just as important as picking the line in the turn. What I do is I'm looking as far ahead as possible when I'm entering the turn. The ground we're on here today is quite slippery and dusty with the odd rock in there, so I'm actually standing quite deep entering the turn at the same time, so if I do hit a rock or catch a square edge, the bike can move under me. Also with my braking, I'm doing about 80% of the braking with my front brake while I trail the rear just to keep the bike settled. With the front brake, I call it trailing. I drag it quite a long way into the turn. I really don't let off the front brake till I start rolling on the throttle exiting the turn, and then just try and keep it smooth from that point on. One of the basic techniques I see people forget, they all know how to do it, but they do get lazy during a long distance race or in a special test when they're racing is gripping the bike with their legs and their knees. It's super important. It just helps. It helps to settle the bike, it helps to take the load off your arms, and especially in some of these 3-hour cross countries the guys doing, that the more you can learn to use your legs, it takes the force off your arms, and most people, their legs are bigger than their arms, so go ahead and use it a bit more. Throttle control is super important also while you're racing in off-road. What I find, I tend to keep my body weight as far as forward as possible. That way I can load up the front wheel and keep the rear wheel light, but at the same time, if I can get on the throttle early, it helps to steer the bike around the corner. It's easy to get into this habit of racing through the turns and getting on the accelerator late out of turns, but it doesn't work. If you can just slow things down and get into a nice controlled early throttle application out of the turns, it just helps to settle the bike and get it turning and heading off the direction you want. Another question I get asked quite a lot, even coaching with elite level enduro guys, is long ruts. They are quite tricky and it does take a lot of practice, but you'll see with me around the ones I'm doing here is it's all about smooth throttle control. Like I'm trying to weight the front wheel as much as I can with body position right towards the front fuel tank, and then I'm just being really careful just not to blow through the turn and just waiting for the exit of the turn before I start to apply hard on the gas. Also really important with long ruts is your gear selection and your entry speed. Obviously you don't want to come in 100 mile an hour because you're just going to stand up and shoot out of the rut, but I try to enter slightly taller gear than normal. Like a lot of these turns here, I'm entering 3rd gear on the WR450. It's got tons of power, so I'm riding it low in the RPM range so the bike doesn't start jumping around and blowing through the turns. And then while I'm looking through the turn, I'm just trying to carry as much momentum as I can just to get me through the corner nice and smooth and clean. Also today we're going to practice a few dead engine starts. There's a lot of different styles out there. We're going to go with the one a lot of the Victorians use today with hands on the head. I'm watching the starter. When he raises his hand, I in a controlled sort of fast way, I move my hand down to the starter button. That's the first one I'm focused on, is getting my thumb on the starter button. As soon as I hear the bike fire, I've pretty much got the clutch in with my left hand. My left foot's hovering above the gear lever, so when the engine's fired, I slip it into gear, and then I pretty much let the clutch out and take off a bit like a race starter. And because I go to 1st gear, it's just a safe gear for me. You could go to 2nd. I've seen lots of people stall, and if you're a bit jumpy on the start and let the clutch out too quick, it's just more prone to stall. So that's why I go for 1st gear, and then I quickly grab 2nd so I'm not wheel spinning, and off we go.